On this fine Monday, Auburn fans have a right to be royally upset.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. We can move on from Billy Napier now, right? I hope so. There is a lot of negativity on today's show. I'll end it with some positive stuff, because the Big 12 title race is going to be just as fun as we thought before the year. But Nebraska, Cal, massive letdown spots. I mean, holy smokes. Just when you thought Cal was good in the ACC. Nope, guess not. This episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. So, Auburn fans and I have had our fair share of back and forth. And when I took Oklahoma to win the game, Auburn fans didn't like that very much. And you know what? Generally speaking, over the last year, I've come to understand through messages I have received, apparently I'm an Auburn hater. I don't know why, but apparently I just want to hate on Auburn. Well, for those of you that have that particular take, explain what I'm about to say. Auburn fans have every single right to be livid, ensconced, furious, annoyed, frustrated, and any other number of adjectives at how that game was officiated on Saturday night. In no way, shape, or form do I want to lead my show with a commentary on officiating. I'm going to avoid being prisoner of the moment and give the ultimate superlative. I'll just say in the last couple of years, I cannot immediately think of a game that was more poorly officiated than what we saw on Saturday night. Now, does that mean Auburn doesn't have other problems they need to fix? No, because they obviously do. Jackson Arnold is okay, but he's not great yet. Maybe he could be if he comes back next year to Auburn, but that's a conversation for another day. You gave up, actually, you know what I just realized? As I'm recording this show, Jackson Arnold just got sacked again. That's not good. The formula for their season opening win against Baylor does not look at all repeatable, because they went for 300 plus rushing yards in that game. Oklahoma held them to 67. There are problems that Auburn has to improve. They have to be able to look internally. I just don't know how to get past the fact we can't know what would have happened had these plays been called correctly. You can't guarantee anything in college football. I'm not coming on here and dunking on Oklahoma and saying it was a fraudulent win they didn't deserve. No, it came down to a drive late in the fourth quarter, and John Mateer looked like the Heisman Trophy winner and marched him down the field making big throws and ultimately ran for the go-ahead touchdown. And then the Oklahoma defense sealed the deal. That's what a good football team looks like. Oklahoma's a good football team. I don't know if they're great, but they're definitely good. Auburn fans, though, likely watched this game and thought, what in the world happened with the officiating crew? There were bad calls that went both ways, 100%. You cannot, in good faith, argue that didn't benefit Oklahoma more than Auburn. You can't make that case. You simply can't. The SEC literally put out a message that said Washington State illegally used a substitution rule to confuse the defense and leave a guy wide open. Should have been a 15-yard penalty, and you would have been staring at second, and I don't even know how long. Now, you can't guarantee what happens after that. Maybe Auburn commits pass interference, gives Oklahoma first down, they go score a touchdown anyway. You don't know. You don't know. But for those Auburn fans who think about this game and say Cam Coleman was clearly interfered with, he was. Oklahoma literally, by the SEC's own admission, violated a rule. Yeah, they did and got away with it because the officiating crew missed it. Here's what's frustrating about that for Auburn fans out there. and frankly, college football fans in general that have had to watch horrible officiating for many years at this point, and it doesn't feel like it's gotten a lot better. When I officiated my first middle school basketball game a few years ago, something that the more experienced ref I was with, that he told me, has really stuck with me. He said, hey, you're going to make mistakes today, but what you need to do is get the elephants. The stuff that everybody sees that's plain and obvious, impossible to miss. Focus on that first, and then try to get the nuanced calls. But you can't miss the elephants. This was an elephant. And in a 7-point game, Oklahoma got 7 points out of it. You don't know what would have happened otherwise. Auburn has to be able. I did think that the fumble, that the scoop and score that wasn't, I thought that was called correctly. I did not think he ever actually had full possession of the ball. But the other moments in the game, dreadful. Dreadful. And that's frustrating. And I'm not going to sit here and tell. I could easily come on here and dunk on Auburn fans who have been giving me crap for quite a long time. You look at Auburn's schedule and it looks really difficult. Why? Because it is. Auburn coming up has got Texas A&M on the road this week. Then they play Georgia. Then they play Missouri. They're going to be underdogs in all of those games. They might not win any of those games. They could win a couple of them. We'll just have to wait and see. But there is no world in which I could fairly come onto this show and start the week by saying, it's just some bad calls and some judgment. No, that was a blatant missed call that had a huge impact on a close game. When it's so bad that a statement's getting issued, that's bad. That's really, really bad. It's unacceptably bad. And now the intestinal fortitude of Hugh Freeze's team is going to be tested because you feel like you just had a game stolen from you. Or at least you had a better opportunity to win that game taken away. And you know what? Auburn still has a lot of things going for it. They have things to clean up. We know that. But that's frustrating. There's no way you can't be frustrated with that. Speaking of frustration, let me go to another team in the SEC. Can we move on from Billy Napier now? What is it going to take? Florida's 1-3. They ran for 80 yards. DJ Lagway threw for 61. Billy Napier's an offensive guy. The offense is dreadful. Florida isn't good. I didn't buy them at all. Them being a preseason top 15 was absurd. Completely and totally absurd. Top 25, all right, you could justify that, but they were the preseason top 15 team. I think they were number 13 before the season began. Miami didn't even play that well. The Florida defense kind of good. Florida defense is legit. The talent shows up over there. But on offense, oh my gosh. Your leading receiver had 22 yards against Miami. Put up 7 points in a rivalry game when you're supposed to be coaching for your job. Yeah, Billy Napier's job status for the Gators should already be decided. Like, the decision needs to have been made already. I don't want to see another late season run by the Gators result in Billy Napier getting another, no, now he's figured it out. No, this is an offensive coach who against actual opponents this year has scored 16, 10, and 7 points with a 5-star quarterback and plenty of weapons. This is bad. Please, Florida, for goodness sake. I mean, I don't know what it'll take. I really don't. Their next opponents are Texas A&M. Mississippi State's a better team than them. Mississippi State should be ranked, by the way. They're not. Georgia, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee. I don't know how many games Florida's winning this year. It might be 3. Maybe. I'm not kidding. I'd pick Mississippi State to beat Florida today. I really would. Nothing about this looks good. I have been down on Napier the entire offseason. And I feel pretty justified in that particular opinion today. So, I don't know what Florida's waiting for. I guess the rest of the season, see if he can save it. Yeah, okay. All right, yeah. Good luck. Good luck with that. Nebraska. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. It's not all bad news for Nebraska, but there's some bad news. First, this episode brought to you by the Game Cat. And by the way, you see this hat that I'm wearing on YouTube? Yeah, I'm wearing the Indiana hat again that I had to wear because I'm a man of my word on yesterday's show. And I picked Illinois to win. That didn't go very well. This hat, though, looks very good. It looks phenomenally good. So if you want to wear those classic rivalry game hats from back in the day, well, guess what? That's what the Game Cap is here to do. And they still go for the same price they did back then. When you use the code Locked On, you'll get your vintage hat for $16.99. That's how much this kind of hat could cost you. And you can go to the game representing a different era, and you feel like you teleported back in time to a simpler world of college football. That is something we should all be able to get behind. Head to thegamecaps.com. That's thegamecaps, all one word, lowercase.com. Thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design. Use the code Locked On for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. I picked Nebraska to win. I thought they could end the streak. It's 27, 29, 540 is what it feels like. Consecutive games lost against a ranked opponent for Nebraska. You know, there's something on brand for me about having picked Nebraska to win that game, because I've kind of been doubling down on this is the year this team will break through. I've picked Penn State to go 12-0. I think Nebraska will be good. I've picked Texas Tech to make the Big 12 championship game. That pick might actually be good. You know what Nebraska was missing in this game? The it factor. Now, they were missing run defense. That's the obvious one. Michigan in this game goes for 290 on the ground. Justice Haynes, I always loved that addition for Michigan in the offseason. Thought it'd be a perfect fit. It's been seamless. Justice Haynes fits into Michigan's system perfectly. He looks like he was bred to be a Michigan running back, and he just does everything Sharon Moore needs him to do. Nebraska ran for 43 yards in this game. Raiola was sacked 7 times. Emmett Johnson ran for just 65 yards. Emmett Johnson's a good running back, and they couldn't get him going. So this is not all bad news. Like on my 5-point scale, the vibes are not the worst they could be for Nebraska. They're bad after this game because you missed another opportunity. You lost another one-possession game. But this game wasn't actually as close as the final score indicated. I felt from about midway through the third quarter like Michigan was really in control, and then Nebraska wasn't going to be able to overcome it. They were asking Dylan Raiola to do a lot, and he did. Went for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception in the game. But at the end of the day, Nebraska in the trenches was not where Michigan was. That's about all that it felt like was missing. It gets a little worse, though, when you consider that this is a two-way conversation that I'm talking about here. They weren't good enough along the offensive line. They weren't good enough along the defensive line. They just weren't. There were moments, there were flashes where Nebraska looked like they had enough, but consistently, like Sierra Wright, the outside linebacker, is explosive coming off the edge. But overall, this is not a Nebraska team that is good enough up front, and that needs to be their top priority going into the offseason, because Michigan is a good team. They're not a great team. They're a good team. They're a great trenches team. And you saw how far Nebraska has to go. So I'll start with the bad news for Nebraska. You lost another close game. You missed a big opportunity. There's still more growth to go before you are a true college football playoff contender. However, progress is being made. That much is clear. But they have played 2 3-point games this year. They beat Cincinnati out of the Big 12, and they lost to Michigan at home. So it was something for Nebraska to win that game. Talked about it at the time. It was something, because that's a game they usually find a way to lose. But in this spot against this team, Bryce Underwood is still pretty new to college football. You knew what Michigan wanted to do, and you couldn't stop it anyway. And the run defense, go look at Justice Haynes' 75-yard touchdown run. There's a nice lane for him to go through, and the safety just can't make the tackle. Those are the sorts of things that I think Matt Rule can fix over time. It just became very obvious they're not quite there. If you put the Big Ten into 3 tiers, Nebraska in the eyes of some, up to tier 1 this year, but at the bottom of it, they're at the top of tier 2. I still think they're a good team. I still think their preseason win total of 7.5. I still think they're going over that. But Nebraska's been waiting to reascend to be a conference title contender for a long time. And Matt Rule can get them there. On Saturday, they didn't look like a team that is there. Now, when they take on Michigan State, they have a bye first. They're going to face a team with a similar identity, not exactly the same, but similar, that is run heavy. If you can't win against Michigan State, you got a problem. The schedule continues to be very manageable for Nebraska going forward. But with this loss, not just with the fact that they've suffered their first loss of the year, but with how it happened and who they still have to play, I don't see Nebraska having that magical breakthrough season that some people predicted they would. I understood why. I understood why they got that sort of praise. But it still looked like, it's better. It's going forward. Matt Rule is the guy. Dylan Raiola is a stud. It just looked like, that game wasn't as close as the final score indicated. Nebraska needed a Hail Mary. They got outplayed by Michigan really for 4 quarters, and Michigan ran the ball at will. So Nebraska's a good team, but that was a chance to prove, hey, we're a top-tier team in the Big Ten. Nah, didn't look like that. Speaking of which, I don't fully understand how this happens every year. It needs to be studied in the history of college football. Justin Wilcox's ability to get his team to play so far down to the level of their opponent that you wonder why he's the head coach every year, despite his ability for them to play up to the level of their opponent, that makes you wonder why he isn't a head coach at a better program. It boggles the mind. Do you know what happened late on Saturday night in Southern California? Cal went to San Diego State. They were favored by double digits. They were not just beaten. They were shut out and lost the game 34-0. San Diego State is in year 2 of a rebuild in the Mountain West future Pac-12. They took Cal to the woodshed and smacked them around a lot. Here's some bad numbers for the Bears. Their star true freshman quarterback, Jaren Kiave Sangopolotele, was 17 of 38 with 2 interceptions. Could they support him with a running game? No, because against San Diego State, they ran for just 65 yards. The Aztecs had 189 yards from their quarterback, Jaden Denegal, and only ran for 134, and yet won the game 34-0. Jordan Napier torched Cal's secondary to the tune of 9 catches for 154 yards. It's just uncanny how Cal this really is. You have one of the best young quarterbacks in all of college football who had a bad game. Bound to happen. You're playing a team who you are, on paper, much better than, and you find a way to lose. You realize that this is arguably one of the more disappointing losses of the Justin Wilcox era. It's not one of the worst ones. They lost to Florida State last year. Not this Florida State, 2024 Florida State. They lost to 2022 Colorado, who won 1 game all year against Cal. I don't understand how this continues to happen, but it is why coming into the year, I was down on Cal. Because I have just seen this movie too many times. The potential is there. The schedule was so manageable. You had people justifiably talking about the Bears as a potential playoff team. They were winning easily. They beat Minnesota, who's a good, respectable team in the Big Ten. And they look like the better football team. And their quarterback is a stud. And their schedule, incredibly easy. And then they go and lose 34-0 on the road at San Diego State. I need someone to explain that to me. I really do. Because I don't have a great explanation. I can't come up with one. There's nothing logical about that outcome. Nothing whatsoever. It's one thing to lose and get upset. You got blanked 34-0. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's the worst type of magical ability that Justin Wilcox has. I'm interested to see how they respond. I'm interested to see what this means for JKS's future in Berkeley, because I tell you what, when this season doesn't even have to end. We know tampering exists. He's getting phone calls. He's getting texts. He's going to get offers. Cal better be putting together a lot of money, and they better figure this out, or he won't be your quarterback next year. JKS special, dude. He had a bad game. Yep, it's been known to happen a time or two to young quarterbacks in this sport. Turns out it's hard. Turns out it is very hard. You know what? There's been a lot of negativity here. Auburn, the officiating, Billy Napier needs to be fired. Nebraska, disappointment. Cal, you want some positivity? Arizona State. Don't write them off. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season's here. FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoffs with a can't-miss offer. So right now, if you're a new customer, can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Do you realize how incredible of a deal that is? I don't know that you do. And if you don't, well, guess what? Now you know how incredible of a deal, because I told you so. Now, here's another thing. When I do my best bets each week, I pick based on lines over at FanDuel. And yeah, it's not going well so far this year. So if you want to fade me each week, I can't tell you to not do that. I'm 4 games under 500. That's not good. That's not good. I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try to use all the great information that FanDuel has. They've got a lot of it over there, but alas, it hasn't gone well so far. Maybe I'll turn around, maybe I won't. If you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Get up to $300 in bonus bets. Check out FanDuel today. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that really make a neighborhood feel like home. It could be a local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And you've probably used Square, you just haven't realized it. Because when you go to any number of local shops or stores or restaurants and you just want to, use Apple Pay or something with a credit card on your phone, just boop, boop, yep, right there. And it's all done in less than 2 seconds. Yeah, Square is helping those transactions be simpler. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. I promise. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Do you remember that time Arizona State played Mississippi State in Starkville, gave up a touchdown with less than a minute to go on 3rd and long, 2nd and long, whatever it was, and they lost? And then they got dropped out of the rankings because the AP voting system's absurd. Mississippi State should be ranked, by the way. They're 4-0 with a win over the preseason number 11 team in the country. 11-12. Let's just understand that Arizona State, the reigning Big 12 champs, is still a good football team. They showed you that on Saturday. I picked them to beat Baylor. They did. They were a slight underdog. They went on the road to Waco, walk-off field goal. Did you see the swag of Arizona State's kicker? Holy smokes, man. Oh, boy. I tell you what, that was some cold-blooded stuff from the Sun Devil special teams unit in there. Arizona State was easy to forget about because they got dropped out of the top 25, ridiculously, might I add. Mississippi State should be ranked. Yeah, that's plain and obvious to all of us. But beating Baylor, do you realize what that does for Arizona State going forward? They are 1-0 in Big 12 play. Some people thought Baylor was a dark horse Big 12 title contender this year. I thought they'd be good. Didn't think they'd be great. That's kind of what they look like. Might be good, but they're definitely not great. Arizona State is about to go through a gauntlet, and it starts with TCU this week, who I'll talk about in a moment. Arizona State, though, is not a team that anybody should forget about in what is once again going to be a wide open, crazy, hard to predict, fun to watch Big 12 title race. Texas Tech is the number 1 team in the league. They were my preseason number 1 team. They have not wavered off of that spot, seeing as how they just went into Salt Lake City and bullied Utah, who I do think is good, needs to figure out the offense a little more, but That was a wildly impressive performance by Texas Tech. I picked Utah to win the game at home. Texas Tech did not care. Arizona State has now got an opportunity. If they can get through their next 3 games. I talked about the stretch with Arizona State coming into the year and how brutal their conference play, their beginning to conference play is. If they can go 2-2 in that stretch, of which they're off to a 1-0 start, please don't be surprised when they're back in the Big 12 championship game. Now, they have some tough teams on the back half as well, but they play TCU this week on Friday. Then they have a bye. Then they go at Utah, and then they play Texas Tech. If they win 2, they close Houston at Iowa State, West Virginia at Colorado, Arizona. Now, Arizona looks a heck of a lot tougher. That game's in Tempe than it did before the season, of course. But again, 2 losses in league play puts you right in that conversation. Winning this game at Baylor, massive. You just find a way. And Kenny Dillingham didn't feel like they played their best football game. I could listen to his press conferences all day. If you haven't and you want to just love college football and a particular coach and how he coaches his program, go watch Kenny Dillingham talk about his team after a win or after a loss. It doesn't really matter. It could be after practice for all I care. He's awesome and easy to root for. And Arizona State, they lost that game to Mississippi State. Do you realize if they had defended for one single play, we'd be talking about whether ASU could be an at-large college football playoff team right now, because they would have a road win against an SEC team, and they'd be unbeaten to this point. They'd still be ranked inside the top 12. Just consider that. I want to turn over and talk about TCU. So I like TCU coming into this year, and they beat SMU on Saturday. I thought they would. They did, 35-24. And that's a good win. They're 2-0 against the ACC this year. By the way, the Big 12, better conference than the ACC. Is there a top team like Miami? No. After that, give me the Big 12 over the ACC. The non-conference results have shown us more than enough at this point. TCU is a team that is playing significantly better defense, which is all they need. They have, who I think is the best quarterback in the Big 12 in Josh Hoover. Now, you can make the case for Sawyer Robertson. You can make the case for Baron Morton when he's fully healthy. He was struggling mightily, though, and hopefully he's able to come back for my Red Raiders going forward in their Big 12 title pursuit. But Josh Hoover and TCU are a darn good-looking football team, who on the defensive side, with Andy Avalos in his second year as defensive coordinator, former Boise State head coach, have a massive opportunity this week. They, unlike Arizona State, haven't played a Big 12 game yet. So the chase in the Big 12, when you think about who's Iowa State comes to mind, because they're undefeated. They haven't always looked the sharpest, but Iowa State hasn't lost a game, got the win over Iowa. That continues to look like a better win, by the way, as Iowa's offense improves over the course of the season with Mark Gronowski at the helm. So one of the few good non-conference wins for the Big 12 in that spot. You certainly think about Texas Tech. I still think about Utah. I'm not out on them yet, even though some people might be. You have to look at BYU that's cracked the top 25. It's nice to see the Big 12 getting some respect from the AP voters. TCU and BYU at 3-0, just sneak in there. They're still behind 1-2 Notre Dame because, why the heck not? But I think TCU has the opportunity. That game on a Friday night, that's one of the bigger Friday night football games I think we're going to see all season that will absolutely be shaping the Big 12 championship race as we go forward. I don't know how I'm going to make a pick in that game because I like both of those teams so much. I love the vibes that get injected into Kenny Dillingham's team. Good vibes. Good vibes from TCU as well. Not the highest, but good. Definitely, when you go on the road and win like that, boy, that can invigorate you. Turn around on a short week, and you've got to play a TCU team you better not mess around with. You better not mess around. Because if they can just be okay on the defensive side of the ball, just okay, Josh Hoover didn't score a lot of points. Tempe should be rocking on Friday. I'm stoked. Absolutely stoked for that game. But when you think about the Big 12 title race, and you think about Texas Tech first, good, you should. When you think about Iowa State, good, you should. I can make the case TCU is number 3 team in the Big 12 right now. I can make that argument. Just saying. It's right out there to be had. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.